Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here in our show today. I'm Armando F. Sanchez, CEO, Armando F. Sanchez Production. And today's guest is Anthony Ortega, who comes from us from Southern California. I was very, very proud to learn about his work. He's taking his own personal initiative to put together some symposiums on Chicanos. And the more I learned about the project, I thought, man, he's way ahead of the ball game here in terms of starting something that was ahead of its time. So I wanted to bring him into the show, learn more about his project, talk about what he's doing and his future plans. So let's talk to Anthony about it. Anthony, thank you for being on our program.
Well, thank you, Armando Sanchez.
Okay, so Anthony, you've done several symposiums already. I got a chance to see them on Zoom. You had some persons already there. Tell us, why did you put these symposiums together on Chicano Movimiento?
Well, I felt there was a lack of academics that were addressing certain movement topics of the times, and I felt it was virtually ignored. I could almost go and say, well, where has there been a symposium on the Brown Berets? You'll probably find one that was done at UCLA, but in terms of doing something in the past, in terms of uh, any academic that did something in the past 50 years, no, there hasn't been, and I just find it very disturbing to find out that much of these academics don't put these things in context. And I had to learn that on my first symposium, which was on the East LA walkouts, and it was great because you always had the same program in the past with many of the same um, panelists that are featured on these symposiums, and you'll find the same people that are in the process. You have the Paula Crisosomos, you have the Bobby Verdugos, the Carlos Montes, but most of them were just rank and file people. Where are the leaders that were facing 45-year life sentences, and yet their voices haven't been heard, and yet there were 13 defendants, and so I began to try to get those other voices that have been virtually ignored, and be able to put it in a symposium where we could reflect from now until then. What have we have achieved from 50 years in the making? Are there more Chicanos teaching? Are there more programs that are geared towards um, you know it, just like the ethnic studies problem that existed and is still existing today? Um, that's very much the forefront of this program in itself, is having these programs where we're able to connect with Chicano studies, we're able to connect with the black and all the ethnic studies disciplines.
Now, you put together three symposiums, I believe, already, and we're talking about your desire to be the leader to put together more. Is that correct?
Yes, and we plan to have more of a then and now perspective. This time a lot. This time. Well, the last time around we had a webinar, and the success of that was great. Um, and and this time around, we're going to be presenting this symposium at Prescott College and in Arizona, and lucky enough, there's other momentum for the next symposium, which I'll be working on in December, and that would be on the Chicano moratorium, and it
Wow.
would be a retrospective of
Now,
then and now.
this is in 2019, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how can our viewers get a hold of you? They want to learn more about your symposium. They want to be sponsors, supporters. Can you give us a contact information so that our viewers can get a hold of you?
Well, sure. While I'm Anthony Ortega, the founder and organizer of this Chicano Movement Symposium series, and we could be found on Facebook. We could be found, or you could reach me on my cell phone at area code 909 232 7050, or at my email at Ortega Anthony 781 at gmail.com. And we do have a PayPal account, and it's under Gary Bao. And if people want to help and donate, because right now at this time we're trying to raise some funds for archival material. Each of these symposiums offers insight into the subject, not just by having academics articulate their message, but also supported by archival material of the times that is reflective of the 60s and 70s. And so I found some footage, and it's in regards to the Chicano moratorium. I'm trying to build from now until then, which is about $1,000, because it's coming from a news network, and no news networks is gonna just say, "Oh wow, here, by the way, you could utilize our material with no without paying the cost for them for it." And so I want to be able to raise the funds and be able to raise um, the part where we're handling the logistics, if we're having it at a center at the last minute, because I'm not able to get the institution to help raise the funding, or for the honorariums for these panelists, then I'll shift. We'll shift, and we'll try to find another avenue where we can have it at a community center or a location that will be able to be, so we could continue with our programs, and hope that someone will help us. And often I'm left with this idea of by a Chicano civil rights leader, Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez. He once said that our love and our support should come from each other. And often I feel there's a lack of connection with the community in terms of saying, you know what, for the movement to continue, we got to be supportive, even if it's in moral support, economic support, or even spiritual support. So uh, it, if we're able to connect those dots and be able to bridge that, that would be great, and it would take a tremendous amount of help. So
Well, for our viewers, we're talking to Anthony Ortega, and this is a very grassroots. And what I love about what you do is you contact persons not necessarily typically known in the media, persons that were participating on their own, and sort of taking on, unfortunately, a danger to their lives being out there marching. And you have connection with all these individuals, and you're trying to record the story. So I applaud what you're doing. I'm really thrilled to make sure you're on the show. Anthony, one more time, can you please provide contact information for our viewers to know what you're doing and to figure out how to make them become supporters of what your movement is?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm Anthony Ortega. I'm the founder and organizer of the Chicano Movement Symposium series, and we host uh, uh, a series of symposiums, and they're 50th anniversary events. And if people want to contact us, they can reach me by email at Ortega Anthony 781 at gmail.com, or they can reach me on my cell phone number at area code 909 232 7050, or we could be found on Facebook on under Chicano Movement Symposium series. And if people want to donate, they could through our he's our financial advisor on our committee, and that is Gary Bao under PayPal. So if people want to connect and the dots in terms of helping us generate this type of funding to help with the logistics and the archival material, your love. It would be greatly appreciated.
Anthony, again, I thank you very much for being on our show. I want to give you a couple of minutes for your closing statements, but I want to reiterate that I really, again, support, and that's why you're a guest on our show, to let us all know about what we can do and contribute, and keep it in mind that 50 years have passed on, but the issues are still very much in front of us, and the la lucha continua. So it's not something that we can just sort of wash our hands from and think of it as only historical. So Anthony, you're the one doing it, bringing together these individuals. So I applaud what you're doing. So with that, let me leave you some closing statement time.
Yes, well, part of these symposiums, just like our last symposium, and a matter of fact, let me just go in a little chronological points that I missed out in the beginning, which was um, that the first symposium was on the East Alley walkouts. The second symposium was on the Chicano participation in the Poor People's Campaign in 1968, and that was part of Dr. King's legacy in terms of addressing the economic conditions and alleviating the economic restraints in poor income communities where the lack of and it also try to address the economic ability to generate more jobs and it geared and Dr. King brought all these leaders together, some 80 leaders together, and it was like a mini United Nations. And what I like to stress is that the power of these symposiums have been through the voices of these activists, and our last symposium was called um, um, the 1969 Chicano Youth Liberation Conference then and now, and we had members of the Young Lords, the Crusade for Justice, the Brown Berets, the Black Berets, and now what I'm working on now for this next symposium, which is the fourth, is the title of it's called "Shock Troops of the Civil Rights Movement of the 60s and 70s Civil Rights Movement Speak: A Retrospective and History of the Black Berets, the Black Panthers, the American Indian Movement, the Brown Berets, and the Young Lords." And this will be the topic of the next symposium that we're working on, and hope that you could support us in our efforts.
One last time, we have a few seconds left. Your contact information, Anthony.
I could be reached at area code 909 232 7050, and my email at Ortega Anthony 781 at gmail.com. Thank you.
Anthony, well, ladies and gentlemen, we've been speaking to Anthony Ortega. He is a grassroots organizer to put together the symposiums. They have been placed on Zoom, so I applaud what he's doing. I think a lot of his work is pretty much ahead of his time, but I see a very deep concern for making sure that the history is alive and then it's active. Then we bring together individuals who are very much part of the story, making the history as it developed. So again, I applaud you for your leadership, Anthony, for your personal work and dedication to make this happen. And I'm just really thrilled to have you on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm running out of time, so I've got to say goodbye. I'm Armando F. Sanchez, CEO, Armando F. Sanchez Studios. And if anything you want to contact me, get a hold of Anthony, please feel free to contact me at afsanchez66 at gmail.com. If you direct anything to me, I'll send it and forward on to Anthony Ortega. Anthony, continual success in what you're doing. Again, I applaud and I look forward to having you on future shows to talk about how your fourth symposium came about. And I'm looking forward to talking about the fifth, sixth, and seventh and ongoing systems as well.
Well, thank you, Armando.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Adios.